Hare Krishna, Hare Hare All glories to the Sama devotees. Hare Gopamanande. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Welcome back to the continuation of our seminar. And I wanted to appreciate our youngest participants today.
Yes.
Witness children, Samson and Heli. Railing. And yesterday I was very impressed because they're so well disciplined and they don't distract anyone and they actually listen attentively and they take part in Kirtan very nicely. So I wanted to give both of them garlands, and if Brittany can take garlands and give it to them.
Haribol.
Very beautiful garlands. One for you, one for your brother. Haribol.
Haribol.
You got a beautiful one. Hare Krishna. So we will continue with our topic, reading from Bhagavad Gita. And it's okay, I can stay. Yeah.
Should I pass the Bhagavad Gita?
So, you may. So we'll read one of the verses of Bhagavad Gita, and today we'll start with the first topic, which is the first step in yoga, And Bhakti Yoga is also yoga. That's why it follows the same principles. And what is the first step in yoga? What is the first thing we need to do in yoga? It is yama.
Yum and yam.
That we have to get rid of everything which destroys our lives. Because yama means what? Literally. Who is Yamaraj? The Lord of Death. So what is yama? Death, yes. So we got to get rid of everything which destroys our lives, which kills us, right? And so today we'll be taking up the topic of life without conflicts. Because conflicts are definitely detrimental for our advancement in spiritual life. And we'll be reading from, there are many verses, funny enough, that Bhagavad Gita, even though it's encouraging conflict, it's Krishna is telling Arjuna to fight and kill, and yet Bhagavad Gita is the book of peace and love. How that is so we will discuss today, and we'll also practice that. But yeah, it's inconceivable how can we at the same time fight and live in peace. But Bhagavad Gita is the scripture which resolves all contradictions. So we'll start with chanting mantras glorifying spiritual masters, Vaishnavas and the Supreme Lord. Om
Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Sthapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swapadantikam Kalpatriyugashya Kripa Sindhu Devevacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasari Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Yamakshati Admushu Purushavam Tegnam Sudasa Sadasatmakaram Krishishtamagavam Vachamsime Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. So
we'll be reading from the page 122 and 123. That's second chapter, text 56. Chapter is entitled Contents of the Gita Summarized. Dukkeshu anudignamana
Dukkeshva anudignamana
Dukkeshu anudignamana
Dukkeshva anudignamana
Sukheshu vigataspriha
Sukheshu vigataspriha
Sukheshu vigataspriha
Sukheshu vigataspriha
Vitaraga vaya krodha
Vitaraga vaya krodha
Vitaraga vaya krodha
Vitaraga vaya krodha
Stitadir munir uchyate
Stitadir munir uchyate
Stitadir munir uchyate
Stitadir munir uchyate
Dukkeshu anudignamana
Dukkeshu anudignamana
Sukheshu vigataspriha
Dukkeshu vigataspriha
Vitaraga vaya krodha
Vitaraga vaya krodha
Stitadir munir uchyate
Stitadir munir uchyate.
Dukkeshu anudignamana
Dukkeshu anudignamana
Sukeshu vigata spraha.
Sukeshu vigata spriha.
Vitaraga bhaya krodha.
Vitaraga bhaya krodha.
Stitadhira munira uchyate.
Stitadhira muniruchyate.
Dukkeshu anubhidnamana.
Dukkeshu anubhidnamana.
Sukeshu vigata spraha.
Sukeshu vigata spriha.
Vitaraga bhaya krodha.
Vitaraga bhaya krodha. Stitadhira muniruchyate. Dukkeshva anuvignamana. Sukheshu vigata spriha. Vitaraga bhaya krodha. Stitadhira muniruchyate. Dukkeshva anuvignamana. Sukheshu vigata spriha. Vitaraga bhaya krodha. Stitadhira muniruchyate.
Ladies?
Dukkeshva anuvignamana.
Dukkeshva anuvignamana.
Dukkeshva anuvignamana.
Sukheshu vigata spruha.
Sukheshu vigata spriha.
Vitaraga bhaya krodha.
Vitaraga bhaya krodha.
Stitadhira muniruchyate.
Stitadhira muniruchyate.
Dukkeshva anuvignamana.
Dukkeshva anuvignamana. Sukheshu vigata
Stitadhira muniruchyate.
Sukheshu vigata spriha.
Vitaraga bhaya krodha.
Vitaraga bhaya krodha.
Stitadhira muniruchyate.
Stitadhira muniruchyate.
Translation purport by His Divine Grace, C.C. Bhakti Swami, Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. One who is not disturbed in mind, even amidst the threefold miseries, or elated when there is happiness, and who is free from attachment, fear, and anger, is called the sage of steady mind. Purport. The word Muni means one who can agitate his mind in various ways for mental speculation without coming to a factual conclusion. It is said that every Muni has a different angle of vision, and unless a Muni differs from other Munis, he cannot be called a Muni in the strict sense of the term. Nasavrishirya samatam na hinam. But the Stitadhira Muni, as mentioned herein by the Lord, is different from an ordinary Muni. The Stitadhira Muni is always in Krishna consciousness, or he has exhausted all his business of creative speculation. He is called Prashanta Nishisha Manoratantara, or one who has surpassed the stage of mental speculations and has come to the conclusion that Lord Sri Krishna or Vasudeva is everything. Vasudeva Sarvamiti Samatma Sudurlava. He is called a Muni fixed in mind. Such a fully Krishna conscious person is not at all disturbed by the onslaughts of the threefold miseries, for he accepts all miseries as the mercy of the Lord, thinking himself only worthy of more trouble due to his past misdeeds, and he sees that his miseries, by the grace of the Lord, are minimized to the lowest. Similarly, when he is happy, he gives credit to the Lord, thinking himself unworthy of the happiness. He realizes that it is due only to the Lord's grace that he is in such a comfortable condition and able to render better service to the Lord. And for the service of the Lord, he is always daring and active, and is not influenced by attachment or aversion. Attachment means accepting things for one's own sense gratification, and detachment is the absence of such sensual attachment. But one fixed in Krishna consciousness has neither attachment nor detachment, because his life is dedicated in the service of the Lord. Consequently, he is not at all angry, even when his attempts are unsuccessful. Success or no success, a Krishna conscious person is always steady in his determination. Dukeshanu Vignamana, Sukeshu Vigataspriha, Vitaraga Vajakotha, Sitadir Munir Pushate. One who is not disturbed in mind, even amidst the threefold miseries correlated when there is happiness, and who is free from attachment, fear, and anger, is called the sage of steady mind. So it's quite amazing. Just one sentence, and it has such an unlimited depth of wisdom. And it's describing Krishna conscious sage, one who is wise. And it is very rare, right, to meet someone who is wise, because mostly people are otherwise. And the formula is given how one can become wise in here by realizing Krishna consciousness, not just by theoretical knowledge. And if one becomes realized, then one will become undisturbed in mind, even amidst any types of miseries, threefold miseries, right? Everybody knows what are the threefold miseries. Coming from which sources?
Natural.
Adibodhika is what?
Surrounding.
Yes. Coming from other living entities. Whether humans or animals or insects, there are so many. Everybody wants to eat us. Right? And the next type of misery is coming from Adidayika, means from nature.
Natural calamity.
Yes, too hot, too cold, hurricanes, tornadoes, so many things, earthquakes, so many things can happen in our lives, very dangerous things. And the last one, Adhyatmika, which means coming from our own body and mind. So our own body can create a lot of trouble for us. And so it says that if you are wise and Krishna conscious, then you will not be disturbed in mind, even if some calamity will happen to you. How many of you are interested in that? Okay? To be undisturbed. No panic. Right? And then this verse says very surprising thing, Sukheshu vigataspriha. One should not be elated when there is happiness. And we might question what's wrong with being elated in happiness. Any problem? Yes, because material happiness, what is material happiness? It's just a introduction to misery, right? And we should never become elated when there is so-called happiness, right? And I think you have the experience, right? Someone offers you very attractive deal, you're gonna win, and you just have to put your signature, right? And then you fail to read this fine print, the small print, right? And you're so happily putting your signature, and then the trouble begins. Not necessarily bad, but you see something very attractive and you become elated and you jump on it, and then it results in trouble. Anyone had this experience, being caught up like this? Okay, few people. So that's why it's also not recommended to become elated, right? Means don't lose your head. Even if there is so-called happiness, because mostly this so-called happiness in the material world means what? Means catch. That's all. And so you should be very careful of this so-called happiness, because most probably it is a catch. 99.9% it is catch, so you should never lose head seeing so-called material happiness. And we should also become Vita. Vita means free, and we were mentioning that yesterday. Being free from three things: Raga, Bhaya, and Krodha. Raga means attachment, and Bhaya means fear, and Krodha is anger. And these three are connected to each other, right? If I am attached to anything at all, right? To my iPhone, for example, and then I'm always afraid something will happen to it, right? Did I lose it? Did I not? Is it still in my pocket? Okay, good. Yeah, this fear is always there. And then in life, it means that we will have to lose everything. And we lose it one way or the other, right? And yeah, happened to me. I lost my iPhone. And I was afraid that I might lose it, and then I lost it, right? And when I lost it, I became unhappy because of that, naturally. And so anger comes, right? Being either angry with yourself, what a stupid thing I've done, why have I done this, why I was not more careful, or maybe someone will steal it, so you're angry with other people, right? So you can see that attachment, fear, and anger, they're connected to each other automatically. But if you become Krishna conscious, it means you can become free from all the three: attachment, fear, and anger. And that means you will become immune to any type of problems in this world. How many of you are interested in that, to develop immunity to any problems? Okay, very good. And for this we need not only learn theory but also practice, because actually if you listen carefully or look carefully at what Srila Prabhupada explains in the purport, he's actually condemning hypothetical theoretical knowledge. He says it's useless, Muni, just one theory, the other theory, and it just remains theory. It's not practice, but for Sthita Dhirmuni, for devotee, it's very practical. And so, we need to learn about all these things. And the ultimate result of our attachments, and we have so many attachments in this world, it's like binding force. And just imagine, like someone will bind you to some pole or to some tree. Will you be happy? Of course not. You want to be free. But material world means Traigunya, right? Three modes of nature. And guna has another translation. Guna means what?
Quality.
Quality, and what's the other translation of the word guna?
Rope.
Rope, yes. So these three gunas, three modes, they really bind us, right? They create so many attachments. And we suffer because of these attachments, right? Like sometimes you can see some animal tied to some tree and really suffering because the freedom is taken away. And so the modes of nature are creating attachments, and these attachments, they create a lot of misery for us. And so for yoga, we really need to develop detachment. We need to become free from all these unfavorable influences in our lives. And so how do we do it? manaha, it says in the mind, right? Because all the attachments are there in the mind, and so freedom is also in the mind. And the best way is, as Padma Purana says, if there are some problems in life, the best way, instead of thinking of problems, of course, this is like favorite pastime of most people, thinking of problems. What shall we think of?
Krishna.
Yes, we should think of Krishna, should think of God. But it's pretty hard, right? To think of God, think of Krishna if I have problems. Even though we sometimes think of Krishna when we have problems, but how do we think about it? How do we think of him?
Relieve all the problem.
Blame him.
Huh?
We blame him for
That's right, yes. We start blaming God, right? Because we know who is the cause of all causes. Who caused this? So Krishna, why have you done this to me, right? So blaming attitude. But this blaming attitude is not good at all. And blame, that's the ultimate thing, right? That someone says that the secret of success in life is to know whom to blame for your mistakes, right? But this is really a wrong secret. You don't want to learn that secret. And it's very interesting how it works, right? In Vedic culture you have mudras, which means hand gestures, right? And there is one universal mudra, hand gesture for blame, right? When we blame someone, what do? Point finger, right? That's the reason why we are not using that finger in japa meditation, because this is the finger of blame, or finger of curse, right? Finger of false ego. And so it is very important to notice that one finger is pointing at external source of our problem, but where the three fingers are pointing at? Pointing at ourselves. And what do the three fingers tell us? These three fingers are actually telling us that there are 3 times more reasons to look at yourself, to look at, external so-called cause of the problem. Because without our input, there can be no problem. And so it's very important to practice that. Whenever the problem happens, and I've been professionally practicing mediation, which means helping people to solve their conflicts, right? Because what is conflict? Conflict means blame and counter blame. These 2 fingers going in opposite directions. And so, and mediation means, okay, can we sort it out? And so by practicing mediation, I was wondering if there are any powerful tools to help people to resolve problems with themselves. And actually there are, this field of conflict resolution is very well developed, and there are tools practically for anything. And we can use those tools very successfully. And one tool I found, I kind of simplified it, and we can use it for solving any type of problems with ourselves. And this tool is very simple. It's only consisting of 3 questions. And these are the questions we need to ask ourselves, right, in relation to any type of problem. And so we will give you the printout of that so that you could use. But for now, you could practice for yourself. If you have any type of problem, you want to blame someone, and if you like to understand what the 3 fingers are telling you, you can meditate on these 3 questions. And you don't have to write it down. I will give you a printout. Just try to, think of some problem. You are blaming that problem on someone, right? And many times we don't have to look very far for someone to blame, because the people who are very close to us, we tend to blame them first, right? And so, and yeah, we want to blame so many people in so many things, playing the role of innocent victim. But it's really important to understand that there are no innocent victims according to the laws of karma. And the first question we need to ask ourselves, if there are any problems, then it is, what have I done to create this problem for myself? Because no matter what happens to us, it can never happen without our sanction. And many times we tend to think, it's something I have done in my past lives maybe, and I'll never be able to figure it out. But in 99% of the cases, we don't even have to look so far as past lives. It's very simple, and unfortunately it's not always obvious for us. And that my absolute conviction based on scriptures is that we are to blame ourselves for every single problem which happens to us in our life. And I was introducing that principle to the devotees in one place in Russia, and one devotee protested. He said, maybe in many cases it is like that, but there are instances when you have done actually nothing wrong and people create problems for you. And he told his story. He said he was driving, and it was a kind of mountain motorway, and pretty narrow in Russia. Mountain from one side, cliff from the other side, right? So he's driving, and then someone, some car overtakes his car and starts, signaling him to stop. And it's not the police or anything, so he's thinking who these people are, why should I stop? So he's trying to go forward, but they start pressing him to the hard shoulder, and this hard shoulder is on the cliffside. And he got really scared, and he's trying to speed up and go forward, but they cut in front of him, and even though he tried to stop, press the brake, but still he, hit that car in front on the side. And then these guys, they jumped out of the car and they started shouting, "You've damaged our car, you have to pay." And he said, why should I pay? You tried to stop me, I got scared, I was trying to get away. They said, well, we wanted you to stop, you had to stop. I said, why should I stop? And they said, it doesn't matter now, you damage our car, you have to pay. And he tried to reason with them, but there were like lots of them, like full car, and there were only two of them, two of the devotees. And he said, yeah, they forced me to pay. And he said, I've absolutely done nothing wrong to these people. And why have they behaved like that towards me? And then another devotee in the class, he said, well, maybe I can help you because I was in the same car with you. And, little bit earlier, you were actually overtaking them and you cut in front of them so sharply that they nearly went off the cliff. And then I've seen that, you haven't noticed that. And then they got angry and they caught up with you, and then the rest of the story you know. So it's very interesting about that. And then another devotee, he said, yeah, very similar episode also happened to me. That I was supposed to do some service for my spiritual master, and I done this service, and I was going back to my spiritual master to report of the successful completion of the service, and I was so happy. And it was very nice spring day, and I was speeding forward, and then stopped at the traffic light, and next to me there was a car. And when you're in a good mood, it seems like everything is kind of, so nice around, and everyone is so happy, supposed to be so happy because you're so happy. Right? And then he looked at these people in the other car, and they looked at him, they were like giving him very angry looks, and he was thinking, what's wrong with these people? I'm so happy, why are they so angry? Why they look so, grumpy? And then before he could figure it out, one of them jumped out of the car and ran towards him, and his window was down. And he said, next thing I see is a fist flying at my face. And, I dodged, and the guy missed. But then he said, next thing I see is his foot flying at my face. I dodged again, and he had slippers, and his slipper slipped off when he tried to hit me, and it went inside of the car. And he said, I was completely bewildered. What's going on here? The guy is trying to beat me up for nothing. What have I done? And then the other devotee was sitting at the back seat, and that slipper actually went all the way to the back seat. And then he picked up this slipper and he said, excuse me, sir, is that yours? And the guy says, yes, it's mine. And he took the slipper, and he hit the car with his fist, and then he went at his car and they sped off. And he was like completely bewildered at what happened. And then he said, I cannot understand why these people are so aggressive towards us. What have we done? I don't understand. Do you understand? He's asking the devotee sitting at the back seat. And that devotee says, I think I do. Because when you were speeding forward, and these guys were parked at the side, and their windows were open. And when you were speeding, there was a puddle of water on the road. And unfortunately, it was not just a rainwater. There was a sewage pipe broken, and all this sewage water was there. And so when you sped up, all this water, they were like fully sprayed with this, all this water went inside of their car. And the rest, that they started chasing, and they caught up with us on the traffic light. And he said, oh, that's amazing. This is how it happens in life. And so, yes, there are always things we have done to cause ourselves trouble, to get ourselves in trouble, and sometimes we might not understand that the causes are that. But in most cases, even if we don't understand, we might ask other people, eyewitnesses, and they might help us to figure it out. But it's very important that in most cases we can figure it out. And how do we cause problems to ourselves? Sometimes we do things which we should not be doing, or we say things we should not be saying. This is how we cause problems. But there are other times also when we do not do things we should be doing in this situation, and when we do not say things we should be saying, and this also causes problem, right? Whether wrong action or inaction create problems for us, right? And so that's the first question, and that is related to external events. Then second question is challenging our worldview, and that question is, and so because all these kind of wrong actions come from illusory worldview. We do not see the world as it is, right? We impose our own fantasies on the circumstance and people. And so if we stop deluding ourselves, then this problem will also stop harassing us. And the third question is very simple: what to do? And normally this solution is exactly opposite to the problem, right? That if we do the opposite thing which caused problem, then that in most cases that is the solution. So that's the simple but quite effective tool of looking at ourselves and sorting our own problems. Anyone found it helpful? Yeah? Anyone has any questions in that regard? We can distribute handouts for you to practice it. We should have enough for everyone. Yes, question?
Yeah, I'm sure most of the people in this room have experienced some kind of problems in their life. Suppose somebody loses their son or daughter or grandson or granddaughter in accident, or your son or daughter calls you on the phone that I'm not happy in my marriage. Those kind of problems, I'm sure everybody must have experienced something or other problem.
Mm-hmm.
So how to stay as a Muni when there are problems.
Yes, that we will discuss next, which is, that's a very good question, very practical question. We'll address that one. But before we do that, any questions in relation to the tool we'll explain, application of the tool? Yes?
A question about the example that you gave about the two cars. So the devotee finds that he was at fault. What about the other side? What was their fault that they got splashed with
Wrong time, wrong place.
That only they can answer. Situation well, but otherwise it will be a guesswork. But yeah, at least for ourselves we should try to figure it out. It will really make our lives easier. Taking full responsibility for at least for our own lives. And if you do that, then you can also help other people. Because once you are not affected by the duality, you can also help other people to get out of the duality. Yes?
So, we always say that everything is because of our previous karma, this life or previous life karmas, which we are going through, or others are going through.
Yeah.
So, if someone is doing negative to me, is it always previous karmas, or there is a flexibility or option that people are making new karmas and they don't have anything in the past karmas or life, but they are still doing it as a new one? Because
Yeah, good question. That sometimes we cannot really figure out, the karma from our past life, but one thing we can work with is the mentality. What happened we don't know, but the mentality we have now, we can understand it. And if it creates problems, we can figure out how to fix it. And so, we cannot really trace back all the time in every single case why something happened. But what to do, we can figure out, and that's the most important thing. All right, and then we'll address the point Mataji brought up, what to do. Because problem can only be solved if there is a positive alternative. And we have mentioned that quote from Padma Purana, instead of thinking about the problem, we should be thinking about Krishna. And this thinking should be done in a very specific way. And we can practice that. Anyone wants to share any problem, and we can help you to understand how to think of Krishna in relation to the problem. Anyone? Okay.
I don't want to mention anybody's name, but somebody in this group has recently lost her beloved grandson recently. So how she can stay as a Muni in that kind of situation?
Yeah, that we have to do for ourselves first. And if you want to bring up some problem, you have to bring your problem. Then we can help you to understand how to solve it. Can you bring up your own problem? Or if you don't have any, then maybe somebody else can do it. Because we cannot solve problems for other people. Like we cannot eat for other people, right? We can only eat for ourselves. Or we cannot chant for, sometimes we can pray for other people. But you cannot practice Krishna consciousness for other people, right? Everyone has to fly their own airplane. So starting with ourselves first, we need to learn these things.
I have a problem.
Yes.
I'm too much attached to the positions, things, and
Too much attachment to the position. Okay. But what kind of problem it creates? Because attachment is just something mental. It's what is the external problem it
I
creates?
keep thinking about those things in those situations. Like why I am away from that particular place or particular people, that kind of thing.
So mental disturbance due to attachment to some position, right?
Yes.
Yes, the method Srila Prabhupada recommends in here, but this problem is pretty kind of not so serious, but anyway, we can try. he says, fully Krishna conscious person is not at all disturbed by the onslaughts of the threefold miseries, for he accepts all miseries as the mercy of the Lord, thinking himself only worthy of more trouble due to his past misdeeds. And he says that his miseries by the grace of the Lord are minimized to the lowest. So first thing is to understand that problem could be much worse. Right? So what could be worse in your case?
Getting into depression.
Getting into depression. So you're not depressed, right?
No, not.
Yeah, you can be happy that you are not depressed. That it could be much worse, right? So that's the first thing, to realize that Krishna is very merciful, and whatever problem is there, we are experiencing that on a very minimal level, right? And then, second stage is to accept it as Krishna's mercy. So, and how do we accept the problem as Krishna's mercy? We see good lessons and benefits from the problem. So can you analyze it, how it is benefiting you, and what are the lessons Krishna is trying to teach you through that situation? Yes? Can you explain?
Over a period of time, I was thinking that by keeping me away from those things which are highly attached, Krishna is trying to educate me that he is the actual owner of those things, not me. But it came after a very long period of struggle through my mind.
Okay. Yeah, we understand that Krishna is in charge, not us. Very good. Yeah. Understanding Krishna's position, that we are not in control. Anything else? Any other benefits?
And it taught me that having attachment to a small thing can create a lot of problem in the later stages, because you get attached and you don't know what to do. So that realization that now I'm afraid to get attached to anything.
Okay. Yeah. Helps you to free yourself from other attachments. Or how that makes you feel when you think about these things?
I feel lighter, but still back of the head that those images and all those things are still there, but slowly it is evaporating.
Yeah. So the more you think of the benefits and lessons, the more you think of Krishna's mercy, how it manifested through the problem for you, then the more happy you feel. And two things happen. One possible development is problem resolves. Happens sometimes when you think of Krishna's mercy in connection to the problem can resolve. For example, I was really sick and I was thinking I should also practice what I teach. And I was thinking, okay, because being miserable is not very interesting. It's not very entertaining, right? So I was thinking, how can I become Krishna conscious through that? Let me think of Krishna's mercy. How Krishna is manifesting his mercy through the sickness, through my sickness. So I'm really miserable here, but why am I miserable? Because I'm identifying with the body, right? Because it's body, it's not the soul which is suffering. Soul has nothing to do with it. So that means Krishna is helping me to become free from bodily attachment. That's great. He's freeing me from bodily conception of life. Wonderful. Okay, what else? It is helping me to become very humble. Because when you are healthy, you can do so many things. But when you are sick, you are down and you can do anything, right? forced to become humble, which is a brilliant thing for my spiritual advancement. And it's teaching me tolerance, which is also nice, and helps me to remember Krishna. And like, I cannot sleep at night, right? Because of so much pain. And I'm thinking, wow, it helps me to conquer mode of ignorance. I'm lying there, I'm fully conscious, and I can think, because if I would be healthy, I would be sleeping and, dreaming some nonsense. But now I'm lying fully conscious and thinking of Krishna, etc. And so the more I'm thinking of these benefits, the more I become free from the misery. And next morning I'm realizing I'm fully healthy. And then later in the day I realized that the kind of virus I was getting, many other people got, and they were down for a week, and I got cured overnight. So that can easily happen. But of course there are some kind of situations which are not reversible at all, right? But if you think of Krishna's mercy, then you become immune to the misery. That it will not bother you anymore, right? So it will either resolve or will stop bothering you, one or the other. And both things are good. Yes? And yes, of course, losing family member, that's big misery. Because family member is like part of us, and so it's like losing part of your body, which is a very challenging thing to do. But there are Krishna's blessings in that as well. A number of blessings, actually. Recently I've been to Michigan, and there was one family, and really wonderful family, very active devotees, and doing so much services, and creating innovative projects for Krishna. And the boy, very wonderful devotee and very active preacher, and very, very serious in his Krishna consciousness. He just got cancer suddenly and left his body in 2 weeks. And the whole family was completely devastated. He's only 20, and his father was like, and mother naturally, they had such high hopes on him because he was so serious in Krishna consciousness. And then they requested to meet with me and help them to understand what to do with it. And I have to tell them that you are blessed because you have a son who is actually in the spiritual world now. Because he left his body in full Krishna consciousness. No doubt, where did he go? And you have your own man in Goloka Vrindavan. So now it's guaranteed that you're going to go there. And but then the father said, but he was supposed to do something like serious for Krishna, and now, I told him that because he was so qualified, Krishna took him to his abode to serve there. Sometimes I'm thinking, if Krishna takes the best ones, I have very long life to live. But sometimes it happens, and he's doing the service there, but his father said, but if he haven't done any significant service in this life, then after a few years, everyone will forget him. And so how do I live with that? And then I told him, because you have your own man in the spiritual world now, you can pray to him, you can request him, to get you some Krishna's mercy, and through that connection, you can do some amazing things in His name and in such a way, in this way, He will be always remembered and glorified. And that's all. Yeah, sometimes Krishna's mercy can be very sweet, but sometimes it can be bitter, right? And because we are sick, sometimes Krishna is giving us bitter medicine to get us cured, but it's all good. And it's really important for us to remember that there is nothing Krishna does which is not beneficial for us. And faith in that is called Krishna consciousness. And so it's like, if you believe in that, either your problems will get solved or you will become immune to misery. But if you don't believe in that, you'll be just living miserable lives. It's like Srila Prabhupada was saying that Krishna consciousness is so great that even if it would not be true, the good thing would be to make it up so that people would get benefit. It's like, I don't know how many of you are familiar with neuro-linguistic programming? Yeah? NLP. Yeah. Anyone heard of NLP? Anyway, it's kind of hybrid science which was created by one computer programmer and psychologist. And they sat together and they thought, can you program human consciousness in the same way as you program computer? And they came up with the idea, yes, you can. You just need to know how, which buttons to push. And that's one of the, what do they call it, predisposition? They have these predispositions, certain mindsets you need to have to move forward in your life. And if you don't have those mindsets, then you are lost. You are finished. And he said, it doesn't even matter if it is true or not. If you have that mindset, you'll be successful. And this is one thing. Believing that everything, whatever happens to me, is for good. Right? Even if we don't believe in God. But we know that in English, where the word good is coming from. What's the origin of the word good? Anyone knows? God. This is where the good is coming from. Because since time immemorial, people believe that God is good. Right? And so whatever is happening is good. If you don't believe in God, that's still good for you. But if you believe in God, it's easy. Whatever is happening is Krishna's mercy. Right? All right. Yeah. Is it clear? Anyone can think of your problem in positive terms? No? Yes?
So, Maharaj, how is it possible to think every time that whatever happens is Krishna's mercy? Even though, the situation is maybe very painful for you, or it might be troubling you, then how can you think that? How is it possible to remind ourselves that whatever happens is Krishna's mercy? How do you remind yourself?
It's
again?
eternal wisdom. No pain, no easy. No pain, no gain. And I think this, maybe Brittany can tell us what's the origin of that saying, that whatever doesn't kill us makes us stronger. Who says that? Whose motto is that? Marines or SEALs or?
I think so, Marines.
Marines, okay, so yeah. This is what American Marines are saying, that whatever doesn't kill us makes us stronger. So yeah, just meditate on this. No pain, no gain. That's it. And always remember that Krishna will never take anything away without planning to give you something better. Right? It's like Shivastakur, right? He lost his son during Kirtan, when Lord Chaitanya was doing Kirtan in his house. And what Lord Chaitanya said, you lost one son, but now myself and Lord Nityananda will become your son. So you've lost one son, you can have two sons in exchange. And plus Supreme Lord, right? And his immediate expansion. So yeah. No matter what happens, it's all good because it's all God, because God is always involved. Yes.
Maharaj, I had a question about the first mediating tool where we are asking ourselves the question, how have I caused or created this problem or conflict for myself? How do we prevent ourselves from getting into this trap where we start like almost over-analyzing everything that we did? Like, you know, sometimes maybe we didn't do anything wrong, and getting into this process of I must have done something, we may almost, it could potentially affect our own self-esteem that, oh, everything I did could be wrong, or everything that I did could be interpreted wrong. So how do we prevent ourselves from getting there?
Yeah, that's another question. How do we see our own foolishness and at the same time make sure that it doesn't destroy our confidence, right? Because confidence is really important for our spiritual advancement. That's why, first thing which helps us to advance is enthusiasm, and second one is confidence. And again, by looking at the formulas given by the great saintly devotees, we can understand how to deal with it. How is it possible that, Bhakti Thakur is telling about himself, Amara Jivana Sada Paperata Nahika Punya Radesha, right? That my life is so full of sinful activities, there is not one good thing in it. I'm so sinful, there is nothing good in me. And Parere Udvika Diyache Jekato Diyache Jigara Klesha, that there is nothing I haven't done to cause trouble to other people. And when other people are in misery, I feel happy. And when other people are happy, I feel miserable. And the whole song is going like that, right? And Narottam Das Thakur, right? That Hari Hari Bipali Janama Gunainu Manusha Janama Paya Radha Krishna Nabhajiya Jane Shuniya Visha Kainu. That oh my Lord, I am a human being, I got this rare human birth, but I never worshipped you, and that's why consciously I'm drinking poison in my life. So it's like speaking so badly about themselves, thinking of themselves so low, so we might be wondering how that is not affecting their self-esteem or confidence. And the formula, the predisposition, as we say, as researchers say, is very simple. I am useless, I am fallen, I am low, I am good for nothing, but Krishna is so amazing and he is so perfect that he can use even me in his service and do wonderful things even with such a useless instrument. It's like famous violin player Paganini. You probably heard of him. And he was performing some live concert, and he had a guy who was like totally envious of him and wanted to destroy him. And what he did to embarrass him, he cut all the strings on his violin, but not completely. They were just barely together, and he never noticed that, right? And so he started playing, and while playing, because he was pressing on the violin, those strings started breaking. And so violin only has 5 strings. And so the first string broke, and he somehow managed to play with 4 strings. Then second string broke. He adjusted. Third string broke. He adjusted still. 4th string broke, and he played only on 1 string, and he finished his piece without a single person ever noticing that anything was wrong. So his genius was so amazing that he could play on 1 string, and it was as good as other people would, could not even do with 5 strings. So, if Krishna is giving such an amazing ability even to other living entities, we can imagine how amazing Krishna is. And for Krishna, it doesn't matter, what our position is, and he can use anyone as instrument in his hands, provided that we want it strong enough. Yeah. So we should think of ourselves. Yes, I'm so unqualified, but Krishna is so amazing that he is even using me in his service. It's like Sachinanda Maharaj just had a very interesting story about a pot, and that pot was cracked. Yeah, you remember that story?
Just read it in one of Maharaj's blogs this morning, actually.
Okay, very good. How many of you know the story about cracked pot? Okay, I'll let Maharaj. Anyway, that pot was cracked, and the man was bringing water in that pot, and when he was carrying the pot, most of the water was pouring out from the crack. And one day the pot spoke and he said to the master, why are you still using me? I'm cracked. Just throw me away, break me. Take a good pot and use it, because most of the water is leaking out. And the master said, I know about the crack, but have you seen all the beautiful flowers which are growing on the side of the road? And actually, because I knew about the crack, so I was walking down the road and I was keeping you about those flowers, and through the crack the water was watering all the flowers, and so it is because of you all these beautiful flowers grew. So that's another example that it doesn't matter how imperfect we are, because we're all imperfect, but Krishna is perfect, and this is all what matters, right? Hare Krishna. And so we actually have a little more, a couple of other things we could practice, but we're supposed to be finishing. So if you wish to stay for another 15 or 20 minutes, we could finish it up. Yeah? What do you think? Everyone's happy to stay a little longer?
Yes, Maharaj.
Okay, so this is dealing with ourselves. That's really important, starting with ourselves. And the other thing is how to deal with other people. And yesterday we were mentioning this very powerful verse, chapter 6, text 32. Atmopavena sarvatra smapaya sukhambhayadi padukham sayogi paramamataha, that a perfect yogi is the one who is seeing equality of all beings in both their happiness and their distress by comparison to his own self. And so normally we're doing that all the time, comparing ourselves with other people, right? Okay, he's more foolish than me, that's good. I can take advantage, right? Or he is smarter than me, how can I bring him down? Or she's, not looking as good as me, that's good. Or she's looking better than me. How that gonna happen, right? So we're always comparing ourselves with others, but all these comparisons are on bodily level, right? But what Bhagavad Gita advocates is to compare ourselves with others on spiritual level. And actually what it does, it completely removes, maybe not immediately, but if we practice long enough, it removes grudge or resentment or negative feeling towards anybody in our lives. And what I'm advocating here is that if we really want to advance spiritually, and that might seem to be like a tall challenge, but we need to make sure that we have zero people in our lives towards whom we feel anything negative, any grudge, any resentment. And this is how we do that. Anyone's interested in this?
Yes.
Yes? Anyone has any negativity towards anybody? Yes? Okay. So to practice that, you need to just meditate on someone whom you don't like. Think of someone you don't like.
Cannot be husband and wife.
Huh?
Cannot be husband and wife.
Can be husband and wife. Yeah. Oftentimes, yeah. The people who are the closest to us, we have problems with. The most problems we have with people who are closest to us. It is true. So yes, can be husband, wife, can be parents, children, can be anything. Boss, employee, whatever, right? Neighbor next door, whoever is giving us trouble, right? Whomever we're not really wishing well, right? Whoever, if something will happen to, we will not really cry. Maybe we'll cry with tears of joy, right? Something like that, finally. But it is very important that we need to get rid of that negativity towards others for many, many reasons. Of course, there are spiritual reasons, but practical reason. What happens if you think badly of other person? Anyone knows?
Just more negative thinking creates more negative energy.
Yeah, and what is the result of that creation of negative energy?
It can affect your health, your well-being.
Yes. Yes, it can destroy your health, it can destroy your mental health, it can cause a lot of problems in your life. So negative thinking is really bad for you. Just by thinking negatively of somebody else does not necessarily affect that person in any way, shape or form. Actually, believe it or not, what scriptures say that if we blaspheme someone or criticize someone or think badly about someone, all the bad qualities of that person we start developing, and that person is getting all our good qualities. So I don't know if you want that to happen. So for our own benefit, we should not think negatively of anyone. And plus, everyone is Krishna's children, is Krishna's child, so anyone is perfect, and so all the kind of imperfections are just, temporary manifestations. So, just for our own sake, we should stop, thinking negatively of others. And it's like Prabhupada was telling the joke that the vulture is flying in the sky and seeing a cow grazing downstairs and grazing on the ground, and vulture is flying and cursing the cow to die as soon as possible, right? And cursing and cursing and cursing, and eventually the vulture dies and cow is still crazy. So we don't want to be like that vulture. And so yes, if you have anybody, and that's pretty much confidential exercise, you wouldn't have to share whom you're thinking of, no one will go into your mind. And this is just for your benefit. Think of the person you have negative feelings towards, but yeah, you should at least theoretically have a desire to get rid of that negativity. And while thinking of that person, I will request you to repeat a few words after me in English. It's not Sanskrit. And you can think of the meaning of those words, and then we'll see what happens. Yeah, everyone's ready? You chose one person whom you dislike, that you want to get rid of that negative attitude. So please repeat after me. Just like me.
Just like me.
This person
This person
is seeking
is seeking
some happiness
some happiness
in life.
in life.
Just like me.
Just like me.
This person
This person
is trying
is trying
to avoid misery
misery
in life.
in life.
Just like me.
Just like me.
This person
This person
has known
has known
sadness,
sadness,
loneliness,
loneliness,
and despair.
and despair.
Just like me.
Just like me.
This person
This person
is seeking
is seeking
to fulfill
to fulfill
personal needs.
personal needs.
Just like me.
Just like me.
This person
This person
is learning
is learning
about life.
about life.
Okay? So let's see if that helped in any way, shape or form. Yes, no? Any comments? How did it help? What is different?
I think I like the aspect of just like me, because it's very easy when the individual has done something to hurt you, it's like, how could they do that to me? But it makes it seem like, oh, I'm the center of the universe, how dare they do that to me? But this kind of puts into perspective that, well, they're also looking for the same things that we are. So there is that amount of compassion that needs to be, at least from a Vaishnava perspective, that level of like compassion.
Yeah.
Blasphemy last time.
Yeah, this is the name of the exercise, compassion exercise. And yeah, because ourselves, we are always ready to understand and forgive and be kind towards ourselves, right? And so it's just extending the same attitude towards others. Anyone else wanted to share? Yeah.
I mean, I don't know if it is funny, but I stopped thinking about the person after the first two statements itself.
Okay, good.
That's real
You know,
advancement.
that person cannot be like me.
Well, sometimes it can be, the grudge or resentment can be so deep that we might still, despite of the exercise, we might still not feel any sympathy towards the person. But we just need to kind of do it a little more regularly, and that definitely helps. Let me see. Anyone felt it was helpful?
Yes.
Yeah. Anyone wants to practice it regularly?
Yes.
If situation arises? Yeah.
Yes.
We have printouts for everyone. again. And the last but not the least thing is very much in line with what Mahasundari was mentioning in terms of self-esteem, confidence. There is one thing which is one of the most valuable gifts in human life, and and that is charisma. Everybody knows what is charisma. Actually, if you look at the dictionary definition of it, the word charisma comes from Greek origin, and one meaning of charisma is God's gift. So it's actually Krishna's blessing. Because, charismatic people, they're quite fortunate in their lives, right? And why are they fortunate? Because Krishna blessed them one way or the other. And so we'll be looking at charisma, but because today we have the kind of, looking at the negativity, so we'll be looking at 9 ways to kill your charisma. So 9 things not to do in life because they will destroy your charisma, right? Let me see. Everyone's interested to have more charisma?
Yes.
Yeah, because it's a blessing of Krishna. And so we'll see if that works from the USB. It's just very short, maybe a few minutes video clip, professional video clip. And what I wanted you to kind of meditate on, this is the task for you. Because it's not enough to get rid of the negative, right? Because what Bhagavad Gita advocates, paramdrisvani vartate, higher face, positive alternative. So instead of, thinking just what to avoid, which is of course also good, I wanted you to simultaneously think of what could be the counterbalance activities which could help to build your charisma. Doing the opposite things.
So, which one, Maharaj?
9 things to kill charisma.
9 mistakes.
Yeah, 9 mistakes. Yeah.
And
Alright.
volume?
Yeah. Can we get sound?
Yeah, we should.
Also.
We should be.
Right.
The sound won't come from the TV, right?
We have so many computer specialists in this room.
You may be doing some pretty little things that can have a big negative effect on what people think about you. So in this video, we're going to cover 9 of the most common mistakes you may be making that can kill your charisma and some quick fixes. Here we go. First, not proactively introducing yourself. Many people feel uncomfortable when they enter into a new group. So in order to keep a low profile, they often offer a small hand wave or just stand there quietly. This is uncomfortable for everyone involved. So the next time that you find yourself entering or being pulled into a small group, make sure to make eye contact and introduce yourself to everyone there with a handshake. If they're particularly involved in the conversation, you can simply say, "Don't mean to interrupt, but just wanted to introduce myself." Which brings me to number 2. Not introducing your friends when you're in a new group isn't cool. A simple, "Hey, this is my friend Dave," goes a long way towards making everyone else feel more comfortable. Third is talking about things that no one cares about. It's fine to mention that you had a weird dream, but as soon as you find yourself telling a 3-minute story about it, you're probably boring people. The same goes for long speeches about anything that really only concerns you, like the quality of your tan, your car problems, or what you had for dinner last night. And if you're unsure whether something only concerns you, it's probably because you're committing the 4th mistake, not soliciting feedback. You don't want to go on for minutes on end lecturing. There should be opportunities for people to ask questions if they're truly engaged. If they're only nodding, giving responses like "wow" or "geez," then they may be uninterested. You might want to try pausing mid-story to ask the other person a question just to see if they ask you how that story ended or to find out that they were tuning you out the whole time. 5th is trailing off or mumbling. While you can pause mid-story, you don't want to trail off mid-sentence because it makes you sound like you don't really respect whatever you're talking about. You see, no matter whether you're introducing yourself, telling a story, or saying thank you to someone who held the door for you, do it in a full and clear voice. Sixth is answering questions with single words. If you find yourself consistently experiencing awkward silences, chances are that you're putting yourself in those situations with short answers. If you give longer 2 to 3 sentence responses to those small talk questions, you're not necessarily oversharing. You're giving the other person stuff to continue talking about, which is usually very appreciated. Also, when you ask questions, try to make them ones that can't simply be answered in a single word, or at least follow up with questions that can't be. 7th, whining. Complaining is just flat out a bad habit, and when you whine to people around you without seeking their advice or looking to improve the situation, you just drive them away from you. 8th is not remembering names. Everyone has a hard time with names, so saying that you're not good with names or not a name person is no excuse to not make an effort. If you typically have a hard time, which most people do, you can repeat the person's name when you hear it, again in conversation, and then finally when saying goodbye to them. Forcing yourself to say someone's name and then recall it twice in a short time span makes it much more likely to stick. 9th is lacking principles. We all experience massive social and psychological pressure to fit in. So many of us hide the things that we believe or the things that make us weird. And while this might keep us out of trouble, it usually just makes you totally forgettable. It's the people who have convictions and live by them that generate the most respect and are the most charismatic. It doesn't mean that you have to shove your beliefs down other people's throats, but don't be afraid to get clear on your principles and stand up for them, even when it's not the popular thing to do. There you have it, the 9 most common mistakes that people make with their charisma. If you like this video, I have a special request today. I'd like you to click the button and subscribe to Zeno's channel. Zeno animated this video. He reached out to me and offered to do it totally for free, despite the fact that it took him hundreds of hours, and his dream was that the exposure would help him hit.
All right. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
So, anyone can think of positive things, or you can name one thing which stood out for you, and what is the antidote?
You mean from the video or this?
Yeah, from the video.
Remembering the names?
Not remembering the names.
I have had time with that.
Yes, everybody has hard time.
It's easy in our movement to say Prabhu Mataji.
Yeah, it's easy.
That's right.
You don't remember the names.
I think to add to Satyam Prabhu's, I think the names thing can go a little deeper, is that it also allows us to have a personal relationship with that person. So not remembering names or not acknowledging them is almost going impersonal. That it's against what our philosophy is, that there's no relationship then.
Yeah, good. Thank you. Anyone else? Anything stood out for you?
I really like the last point, living by your principles. And yeah, it creates a good impact on others that they sometimes start looking up to you.
Yeah. Actually, it is one of the best ways to live conflict-free life, and that is called I messages. Like, instead of saying why you, this and that, you can say, I believe in this, I want this, I prefer. That makes people respect you.
So just being humble but confident.
Yes. Sometimes Srila Prabhupada defined humility as being bold for Krishna. This was Prabhupada's definition of humility. Alright, anyone else? I was wondering if lecturing stood out for anyone. Lecturing to people, like talking to people so long that they lose interest in what we have to say. So what's the antidote? Instead of lecturing, what should we do? And is lecturing popular in the Hare Krishna movement? Very popular.
Practicing.
Live by example.
Huh?
Live by example.
Yes.
Just
Live by
like
example.
shows
lecturing and listening.
Practice before preaching.
Someone might raise an objection that, but Srila Prabhupada was lecturing. What's wrong with lecturing? Why we should not be lecturing? Well, if you look at how long were Prabhupada's lectures, 20 minutes, yeah, and sometimes even less than 20 minutes, right? Why? Because the research says that humans can focus on the subject for maximum 20 minutes. That's it. And then the attention goes away. And so, yes, Prabhupada was giving 20 minutes class during the day, but what was happening the rest of the day? Interactions, conversations, training programs were happening. They were not like official training programs, but they were spontaneous training programs. So Prabhupada would say, you have to, bring the arguments as if you're a materialistic scientist, and I'll be refuting those arguments.
Mm-hmm.
Or you have to bring me arguments from Mayavadi sides, and I will be refuting them. And devotees tried that, and they said, "Oh, Srila Prabhupada, it's not possible to, win over with you. You have, all these answers." And Prabhupada said, or they were saying, "Oh, the Mayavadi stand is very weak, so it's easy for you to win over us." And Prabhupada said, "Okay, then I will be Mayavadi, you will be devotees. I'll be bringing the arguments, you have to refute them." And then devotees couldn't win Prabhupada again. And so many things, like Prabhupada would interact all day long with people. And this is when the learning was happening. So lecturing was given like minuscule percent of his time was given to lecturing. And that's really important for us to remember that he was very much practicing training and experiential knowledge rather than just knowledge transmission, which is pretty much useless way of learning to the most part. Alright, so I hope it was useful, and so tomorrow we'll continue. 11:30 to 1. Yeah. And tomorrow we'll be practicing very important second aspect, which is confidence. We'll be learning how to develop confidence in Krishna consciousness and in life, and how to be always enthusiastic and how to be always happy. Anyone's interested in learning how to always be happy? Okay, good. Alright, so we'll see you tomorrow then. Thank you. Hare Krishna.